Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Mary Ann Faremouth on today's show.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, a division of Authors Marketing International. Tonight, I am delighted to have with us an author that has done some amazing things. This author has written a sci-fi series. He's also been on the Hollywood Writers Guild. He's been the head writer of that. He's got editing background. He's also a multi-genre author and written in some other areas. And he's just a fine human being. And I had the pleasure of getting to know him the other day in the Blue Room. And without further ado, let me introduce Dylan Johnson, with his pen name being J.R. Johnson. Dylan, introduce yourself and tell the listeners out there, why you got started writing and kind of what you do.
Yeah, of course, Mary Ann. Thank you so much. It's definitely such an honor to be here. Yeah, as Mary Ann said, I'm Dylan Johnson, a pen name DR Johnson. And so, yeah, I've written for a long time. I started writing when I was about 11, honestly, for a class assignment, and just continued from there. I got inspired by, growing up, I loved different things like Star Wars movies and Star Wars books, and a lot of other just shows and everything as well. I was always inspired by them. And then as I got a little older, I started having different ideas for what the story should be. The stories wouldn't always go the way that I wanted them to. And so I was like, well, why can't I just write up a different version? And so that's what I would do. And so eventually, as I went throughout my teen years, I basically started coming up with my own stories, my original stories, characters and universes that I loved and that just came from my brain. And basically that kind of gave birth to what eventually became my first novel, Survival Dark Times. Even as a teenager, I was working on it, had some friends who contributed ideas and everything to it online and whatnot. It was just a lot of fun. And in the meantime, as I kind of continued on in school, I eventually went to the University of Central Oklahoma to get a bachelor's in creative writing. And so through that, I got exposed to a lot of different types of writing too, beyond just prose. I started doing screenwriting in my screenwriting classes. I learned comic book writing, a lot of things like that. And I was just fascinated at how many different forms writing could take. And so I graduated in May of 2018. And since then, I've gotten to work on a few different projects and a few different mediums. It's been a huge blessing. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I think it's a story. And I love your title, Dylan, that's called Survival Dark Times. And how interesting, we talked about this the other day, that you started this series before COVID. I think it was in 2019, but what a cool title. I mean, who isn't going to resonate with survival of dark times? And how did you come up with that title? I mean, did you have what made you write a title or develop a title like that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's funny because, like we talked about the other day, had no clue COVID was coming. This was not some type of omen for the pandemic. In the story, if you look at the story, it really is about this eclectic group of characters on this ship traveling across this galaxy. It's a sci-fi novel, so those classic sci-fi things, but they're trying to survive, because it's a dark time for the galaxy. It's a dark time in their lives, and really thinking about what encapsulates this story the most, what really sums it up. This is what a title is. It sums up in a way what's happening. And they're surviving. They're trying to survive dark times, and obviously the story goes a little deeper than that. But at the time, that was just my thought. I was just like, okay, this is just their story of how they're living day by day, how they're going to get through each day, and then it was released in July of 2019. And who knew that a year later, we'd all be trying to survive some dark times, but I guess it's working.
Well, I think it's, the one thing that, you shared with me that was so positive and uplifting was that, it is a sci-fi novel, Dylan, but this sci-fi novel is so relatable because it talks about issues of trust and forgiveness. And I think all of us right now, from what we've endured, with COVID, I think we've all had to take a step backward and reevaluate things. And, in all due respect, and, understand, I'm a mom of two millennial sons. So don't take this as a criticism, take this as a compliment, for someone of your generation to have the insight to write something of this magnitude for a universal message of trust and forgiveness. I think that's wonderful, and I think that says a lot about who you are. And I'm curious for our listeners out there. I know writing is a way for us to expand our mindset and become our best selves, but how did you get to that point? I mean, you're bright, you're accomplished, you've done well, you've achieved a lot. I mean, you've worked for the Writers Guild in Hollywood, but how did you come to that realization without a whole lot of experience?
Well, thank you, Mary Ann. That's all so kind. And I think, it's been a really loaded experience. And even in my, just shorter life, I think I think there's a few different things to it. I think I'm a person of faith. And so I really thank Jesus for it, honestly. I've seen forgiveness and faith impact my life, and even with that too, just people, I think all people are so beautiful. They're so intricate. Everyone I've ever met, there's always something good about everyone. And I think obviously we find with people though that we don't always get along. Sometimes we are hurt by people in our lives. They could be family members, they could be friends, they could be even spouses, significant others. But no matter what, that person's still a real human being. And I think as I've seen some of that throughout my life in different relationships, both with my own relationships and relationships around me that others have had, I've seen how important it is to come to a place of forgiveness where you give up the right to be angry and learn okay, for me to grow as a person, I need to learn to actually trust this other person. I need to learn to let them in and look at things from their perspective and look at how can I care for them better. And I think COVID has especially even taught us that even more. It's taught us that we were not meant to do life alone, not at all, because we've spent the last year and a half isolated, and that's been really tough for all of us, even the most introverted people. And so I think one thing I really wanted to show with this story is even though, it's got action, it's got all the classic sci-fi tropes, it's a war, it's crazy. At the same time, it's really a story about people learning how to trust each other and do life together. People who come from trauma, people who come from broken backgrounds, learning to not just survive, but also to thrive and how they can love each other better in the process.
Well, I think Dylan, I think you're a breath of fresh air for these times. And I applaud you for your beautiful message. And, I'm an executive recruiter. And what I find so interesting about your journey as a writer is that, you took an internship and you really went in there on that internship from what we talked about, Dylan, and you really worked hard and and you worked for some, with some really famous people that produce some really famous, sitcoms and different things. But because of you going in there and working so hard, they hired you. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I took a screenwriting internship, ironically, a week before the pandemic really kicked into gear, but I had an amazing writing mentor through that and the producers there, as well as my writing mentor, Leilani, who she wrote for things like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Sister, Growing Pains, more recently June the Phantoms. She's an amazing writer, amazing person, and now a treasured friend, and they all believed in me and they advocated for me.
Yeah, well, I think that's wonderful. And the other thing that I think, is so wonderful to hear from someone like you is that, you're so dedicated to helping others and expand, other writers and authors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that's a wonderful mindset to have in these times that, yes, we are all authors, we're writers, and you, I mean, how many people can ever say that they were, in the Hollywood Writers Guild? I mean, that's pretty impressive. But the thing I was so impressed with you about was that when I talked to you, your message in your books are a message that is universal in that, it is sci-fi, it is, otherworldly and all that, but the message is, about forgiveness and trust and, and caring about others. And I think in these times, how great is that? Well, we have to let our advertisers and sponsors do their thing. So Dylan, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Mary Ann Faremouth is a career consultant with 30 years experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award-winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmouth.com.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Bame's books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story. And then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Bame's books are available at B4R Store.
Hello, I am the author Denise Bryson. My first book is The Things That Cross My Mind, Inspirational Poetry with Life Lessons. And then my audio book is Love's Reality. And it is also inspirational poetry with a jazzy flair. And then my new book is The Sex, the Lies, and the Soul Ties. They're really short stories written from a poetic expression. And then I have my first children book series, the Blinky series, which the first book is called Meet the Coins, and it is both in English and Spanish. And then the new book From Coins to Bills. I am the author, Denise Bryson.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Mary Ann Faremouth on today's show.
Welcome back to the Indie Beacon Show, division of Authors Marketing International. And today I have the distinct pleasure and honor to speak to an author that I just really like this young man. His name is Dylan Johnson. His pen name is Dr. Johnson. He is a multi-genre author. He's also a member of the Writers Guild. He's worked a little bit in Hollywood. But Dylan, tell us a little bit about some of the projects you have on the docket going forward. I mean, I know you have two series, a book series, a sci-fi, interesting title that I love so much called Survival of Dark Times. And I think you might have a third one coming out, but tell us some of the things you have on the docket for going forward.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited you asked that because there are a few exciting things, Yes, there is a third Survival Dark Times coming out in the near future, sometime over the next year. Don't have an official date yet, but working on it, excited about it. And so that will, maybe not be the final in the series as a whole, but the finale of this specific trilogy. And so that is very exciting to kind of see some of these characters we've followed for, over 2 years now, kind of see, where some of their arcs going to end, what's going to happen, how are these stories that we've seen throughout 2 books going to, finally wrap up. And so I'm very excited about that. And then, I also, as you mentioned earlier, I do some editing. And so I edited a nonfiction book, kind of sharing someone's testimony, someone's life story. He moved here from Uruguay and kind of talking about that experience and just really him finding his worth, through God, through Christ and and just through his life, the meaning of his life as he moved here from Uruguay. I edited that. That'll come out next month in October, actually, October 2021. So that's really exciting. And then also I'm continuing my work on scripts. I have a few different potential screen projects coming up. I have short films I'm running through the festival circuit right now, various film festivals, which is very exciting. And then there are a few other companies, both local companies here in Oklahoma City where I'm based, and then also remote companies, whether they're out in LA or in other states. They're talking about potentially doing projects for them. So I'm very excited about those and just continuing that part of my career.
Well, how wonderful that you have, so many exciting projects on the docket. And I'm just curious as to what gave you the inspiration to write the book about survival of dark times way before COVID ever hit. What was that incentive to do that, Dylan?
Yeah, so thank you so much for asking. Like I said, I loved Star Wars growing up. That was such a fun movie series for me. And I mean, if you get into the Star Wars lore, there's a huge expanded universe out there with fascinating stories, you know, many books, games, things like that. And one thing I always wondered about, though, is like I always wondered, like, okay, so there's these awesome space stories of these societies in space, but what are the common people doing? Like, what are just the normal people doing? You know, the people who, you know, are just trying to get by, you know, and that kind of gave me the inspiration for Survival Dark Times. Because I was like, okay, like, let's say, you know, in any given space universe, let's say there's this universe, you know, where there's multiple species, you know, a monarchy, things like that. But what about just a guy who he's just surviving from paycheck to paycheck, basically, who he basically delivers goods from planet to planet, kind of just like a UPS in space, you know, just one of these average guys. But at the same time, if we go beneath that, what if he's not really that normal? What if like him being normal and trying to get by is what gives him an extraordinary perspective, and a perspective that's able to help those in need, you know, and the people he's surrounded by, this kind of ship crew he lives with and does jobs with. What if their lives living kind of, you know, really gritty, like impoverished lives, what if that gives them an inspiration to want to become something more and help people in this galaxy? You know, and that's kind of the story. They start helping these teenagers who are on the run from the government, and just kind of the inspiration of them giving back, of them all finding themselves and finding their real destiny beyond just living an ordinary life, even though they seem like ordinary people. You know, how basically it's not always what it looks like on the surface. People aren't always what they look like on the surface. That was a big inspiration for this.
Well, I cannot tell you how refreshing your perspective is. And I think that for these times, especially, that perspective is one that is so needed right now. That you know, it gives people hope. It gives them an attitude of encouragement. And I'm sure your spiritual bent in life, it has something to do with it. But you know, I just cannot say how impressed I am that you've done, you know, so much at your juncture. And I think you are very much an inspiration for our listeners that can learn and grow from someone like you, who's done so much, but more importantly, who's got a writing craft that is about trying to help others with hope and with inspiration and with future processes and enhancements. So a big applause to you. I'm so glad that I got to know you, and I think that these projects you have on the docket sound really interesting. And how do you fit all this in, though? I mean, you work, you write, you do so many things. You're on the Screenwriters Guild. I mean, it seems like a lot for one person. How do you fit it all in?
Yeah, you know, it's definitely a balance, you know, but I think for those of us who want to pursue a career in writing, it's part of the grind. I really do think that. You know, I think that it's about time management, obviously, those things, those skills we all have to learn no matter what our career is. But I think as a writer, like if you really want to succeed as a writer for your career, you have to be willing to look at different types of projects, take on a diverse amount of projects, a variety of projects, you know, and obviously there's a balancing act that comes. I mean, I'm not saying I'm there. I'm still trying to figure out how to write both, you know, a new novel and screenplays, things like that. But at the same time, it's like just seizing the opportunities available, going after them.
Okay. And I have a good question for you. I mean, as a screenwriter, did you write your book with a movie in mind as you wrote it?
Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. I think that, you know, a little Hollywood talk, like for one, IP, intellectual property is king right now in the industry. So that's one thing, you know, that even, you know, now just kind of benefits, you know, so it's helpful for any writer. If you have a screenplay, turn it into a book, you know, just free advice. But especially for me, I think I wrote the manuscript trying to envision it, visualize every part. And okay, this could be a movie one day. This could be a show one day. And so, yeah, that's definitely a long-term dream.
Well, I mean, working in that internship with those really famous people that have produced, you know, sitcoms and movies, did it help you getting, you know, gleaning information? Because, you know, I'm an executive recruiter, a national recruiter, and I encourage students to take internships. But do you think, Dylan, that internship was really instrumental in giving you extremely good information to move forward?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I mean, because I think from my writing mentor, my friend Ilani, who I spoke of earlier, like she's taught me so much about the industry, about what makes people raise their eyebrows, at a writer, what makes you stand out a little bit. And also I saw the production process, just in general, even on a small scale. I saw short films being produced and what the production department went through to get those there and what the executives had to think about and consider when deciding what to produce and how to produce it, and so I think it definitely gave me just so much hands-on knowledge. And that's how I got in the Writers Guild. I became eligible for the Writers Guild through my work at that job. And so, yeah, definitely just it's knowledge just building on top of itself.
Well, great. Well, do you think that you have to have the unique passion to start off with? Or do you think being a screenwriter and having a book that will be perspective in, material for the big screen is important? I mean, where do you think the most important ingredient lies? And we have about a minute here before we have to give our sponsors a chance. So kind of concise your answer.
Yeah, I do think passion. I mean, I would come down to that, like you have to love it. I know that sounds cliche, but it's true because it's a hard career. Any career is a hard career, but especially writing, like you're going to be rejected a lot. You're going to find a ton of obstacles, whether you're trying to go be an author or be a screenwriter. And so I definitely think that, yeah, you have to care about it and be willing to just endure and have perseverance.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a break and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll come right back.
Publishing marketing package for authors. A $1,500 value, save 40% now. Includes a 6-piece marketing kit of 250 bookmarks, 250 business cards, 250 postcards, 1 table banner, 1 table runner, and 50 download cards, plus book cover design, ebook creation, PDF setups, upload to Ingram Spark, scroll placement, video commercial, and interview on IBS. Plus much more. Email bourgeoismedia@look.com for details or bourgeoismedia.com.
Hi, I'm Mel Greenberg, author of Running with Our Eyes Closed, book 1 in the Empty Nested series. To the world, Samantha has the perfect life. 3 wonderful children, a loving husband, so she thought, and a life split between Dallas and Italy. When her youngest leaves for college, it all comes crashing down, forcing Samantha to re-examine everything. Over 7 days in one of the most romantic countries in the world, Samantha faces the past she thought she'd overcome and begins to redefine her role as a woman, a wife, and a mother.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Mary Ann Faremouth on today's show.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, a show dedicated to support authors all over the world, a division of Authors Marketing International. Today I have the distinct honor and pleasure to talk with Dylan Johnson, pen name J.R. Johnson, who is a writer, sci-fi writer. He is also an editor and very exciting background as well with the Hollywood screenwriter, film and casting division. Dylan, tell us, for people that are listening to get a hold of these great books that you've written, these sci-fi books that, they're sci-fi, but the message they have is so relevant to these days and times because it has a real message of resonation as far as trust and forgiveness and being your best self. Where can they find this great series of books called Survival of Time?
Yeah, they can find them on Amazon, available both in ebook and paperback. And so, if you have Kindle Unlimited, it is at both of the novels are currently available on Kindle Unlimited, but you can also just purchase the ebook as well as order the paperback.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'm just thrilled to have the honor to be the host on the Indie Beacon show tonight with the author Dylan Johnson. His pen name is D.R. Johnson. And Dylan, is there any social media or website that we can tell our listeners out there about that they could refer to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My Instagram handle is at Dr. Johnson Author, AUTHOR. Then my Twitter handle is Storyteller DRJ. And then my website, my author website is drjohnsonauthor.com. And so I'm very easy to reach at any of those. And I would love for anyone reach out, hit me up. I always love to meet new people.
All right. What about Facebook? Are you just there as Dylan Johnson or Dr. Johnson? Are you not on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, actually. You can find my author page on Facebook at Dr. Johnson Author.
All right. All right. Well, we so appreciate you taking the time to visit with Indie Beacon show and being a part. I know you're a member now of Authors Marketing International, and we're thrilled to have you because this is an organization that certainly does assist and promote authors all over the world. And I'm going to, watch you and see your progress, because I know it'll be huge because you have such a wonderful message. And again, my name is Mary Ann Faremouth. I'm the host of Indie Beacon Show. And we have just talked to Dr. Johnson, who is a sci-fi writer, editor, and also a member of the Writers Guild in Hollywood. So again, thank you so much. Keep us in mind as you move forward with your writing projects. And we again look forward to all the exciting writing seminars and projects and different information that we offer here at Authors Marketing International. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show, produced by Beyond Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International LLC. Copyright 2021. Voiceover by Beyond Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please email us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on the show, please complete the form found on our website at indiebeacon.com. You may also watch previous year's shows on the website. Music is Frolic of Words, created for Indie Beacon